Hey everyone, and welcome back to Timeless. Today we're going to be revisiting the old classic, Mardu Energy. This is the deck I was maining last season when we finished for rank number 9 overall in Constructed, and I wanted to go over the deck again, go over the state of the deck. Lately I had been more just playing a variety of decks for YouTube and also just for fun for myself, but I'd like to get some games in with this and also refine the deck a little bit, tweak it a little bit for the current meta, and I do already have a pretty big tweak. But I'm going to go over every card individually because some people might not be familiar with the deck. So let's treat this video as like a bit of a tutorial, maybe over-explained, where we talk about energy, we talk through all of our decision making, and teach people about this very cool deck, because I still do think that this deck is one of the best, if not the best, in Timeless right now. So this deck's core is the very efficient energy package that you have seen everywhere, all throughout Timeless and Historic if you've been playing it. We've Guide of Souls, Ocelot, Pride, and of course Ajani as our core white creatures, and Galvanic Discharge and Amped Raptor as the exceptionally good energy cards to complement them. We also play Static Prison, which is a 1-mana remove anything as long as you have energy to upkeep it. The rest of the deck does get a little bit more flexible beyond that core, so I'm going to explain my choices and why. I think Ragavan is fantastic as another 1-drop. It's another card that can threaten to snowball the game in the same way that Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride does. And when I build my decks, I really like to max out on the chances of me having a exceptionally good 1-drop in my opening hand when I'm playing an aggro deck like this. So I think having 3 or 4 Ragavans to complement the 4 Guide of Souls and the 4 Ocelot Prides is correct in this deck. I'm currently running 3. Also in the 1-drop slot, we're playing Swords to Plowshares. This is one of the flex slots in the deck. You're generally going to want a few more removal spells than just Static Prison and Galvanic Discharge. 8 removal spells to 10 is generally the sweet spot, and I'm not running all 4 Static Prisons because often when I do that, I do run into some issues with the energy upkeep. If you have multiple prisons in play, it can be really tough to actually afford this energy cost. So that's why we're down to 3 of this and 2 of Swords to Plowshares, just to split it around a little bit. At the 2-drop slot, we have the Chthonian Nightmare, which is one of my favorite cards. This card provides amazing value whenever you pair it with a card like Ajani. This is a card that you can use to flip Ajani by sacrificing the cat token. You can also sacrifice the tokens that Ocelot Pride makes, and you could also sacrifice the tokens that Orcish Bowmasters, another format staple that we're playing, makes. You're also going to be able to redo all of your ETBs when you could do your Chthonian Nightmare loop. So if you have a Guide of Souls in play, every time you loop something with Chthonian Nightmare, it's going to gain you life and get 1 energy. If you bring back a Bowmasters, you're going to get a ping, another little 1/1. If you bring back a Johnny, you're going to get another token. If you bring back Amped Raptor, you don't get the cast trigger, but you do get some extra energy, which can be quite useful. And one more thing to bring back is Juggernaut Peddler. We're playing 2 copies of this card, and this is a card that has really impressed me in all sorts of other decks, so I decided to add it to the energy deck, and I think it's been a great add so far. This allows us to have access to main deck discard, and it allows us to play even more discard spells after the sideboard. Discard spells are very good against combo decks and unfair decks. And before I had 0 in the main deck and only 4 in the sideboard, because you only get so many sideboard slots. But now I have the 2 peddlers in the main deck. It seems really good. I would even consider, I haven't done it yet, switching out some of the Bowmasters for more peddlers. Maybe we could split it 3-3 or even have 4 peddlers. Too many peddlers, though, can become a problem against creature decks. This is only good against some decks, so perhaps the 3rd and 4th copy of Peddler could go in the sideboard. But I've really loved this card so far. I've really loved being able to sacrifice it to Nightmare after it's already done its job, or even buy it back with Nightmare, buy it back with Luris. And it also has just a very respectable 2/2 Vigilance body. It's one of the best things to put Guide of Souls counters on, because then you'll have a Vigilant flyer. Last card here is Goblin Bombardment. This is a card that people have been running as an alternative to Chthonian Nightmare in non-black versions of this deck, and even in the Chthonian Nightmare versions, people, including myself, has realized that Goblin Bombardment is another alternative sack outlet. It's a card that you use to flip your Ajani, and it's also a red permanent for the backside of Ajani. It is a way to cash in on getting very large and wide boards with Ocelot Pride and Bowmasters. It's a great way to win mirror matches. If one player has a bombardment in play and the other doesn't, the one with the bombardment dictates what stays on the board and what doesn't, and that's very powerful. Bombardment also just has random upside in a lot of matches. It gives you a crazy amount of reach when you're trying to close out games quick. We've been playing the Mono Black Devotion deck a lot on this channel and trying to rely on March to gain life, and this Goblin Bombardment just like hoses that and a bunch of other random effects. It's so funny what this card can do. It is very crazy powerful, We are only playing two of it because we only want so many sack outlets. I think five is the correct number, and both Chthonian Nightmare and Bombardment are not good in multiples, so that's why we're not going to play more than three copies of either of them. If you wanted to play a third copy of Goblin Bombardment, I think you totally could. And then one notable exclusion from this deck that is almost always in energy decks is Unstable Amulet. And I do want to talk about that really quick. Pull up the card just so that we can see it. This is the classic energy piece. This is the energy piece that lets you get guard advantage. It pings your opponent for reach, and it also lets you rebuild after a board wipe. But unfortunately, the timeless meta has evolved a little bit, and to clear out Unstable Amulet, people are playing cards like Wrath of the Skies, which destroys creatures, artifact, and enchantments. They're also playing cards like what is it? Temporary lockdown. Oh, not Luris compatible. Playing this card, which can hit artifacts and enchantments while it also hits creatures. So because these cards have started to come back into the meta, my opinion of Unstable Amulet has started to go down. Because it's going to die alongside of all of your other stuff, which gets rid of one of the use cases for it. And every time that I played this deck and I had a hand with multiple Unstable Amulets in it early game, I felt like that hand was unplayable because it was just so slow. It would lose so often instead of winning. So that's how we made room for these Juggernaut Peddlers. I actually decided to straight up cut the amulets, and at least my version, when I still had amulets, I had one less Goblin Bombardment, one less Static Prison, and I had zero Peddlers. I had four amulets instead. I said, let me try and cut it. I cut it in a BO1 version of this deck that I made. I said, you know what? Let's try to be faster. Let's be more aggressive. Let's have a higher density of threats. We don't need another stupid Dirtly card because you can already classify Chthonian Nightmare as a stupid Dirtly card. And you have three copies of that in your aggro deck. You don't want to get any stupider or dirtlier. You also have Goblin Bombardment as another 2 mana investment that is not a creature and doesn't contribute to the board itself. So you're telling me I'm also supposed to play Unstable Amulet and play even more cards that don't contribute to the deck? So I've been down on the card lately, and I haven't looked back since cutting it. Meta dependent, it might be correct to play the card. I don't think the card is good enough to warrant a sideboard slot, at least in my opinion right now, but of course things could change. Just right now, I feel down on Amulet, even though it is a pretty powerful effect, and it is a nice way to theoretically build back after a board wipe. Lastly, this is a Luris deck, and Luris is incredibly strong if you haven't gotten a chance to play with him yet, but he's super, super strong with Nightmare. Nightmare being able to buy back your Luris and essentially giving you extra copies of Luris is almost unfair. It takes Luris from a very good part of a deck to just amazing. It's almost impossible to lose late game grinds as long as your graveyard doesn't get exiled or Chthonian Nightmare doesn't get pithing needled. Onto the sideboard. The sideboard hasn't changed too much since the last time we went over the deck, so let's talk about it really quick. Here we have, let's scroll and get everything in view. First, for a Luris deck, we have three copies of Deafening Silence. This is primarily for the unfair matchups, such as Show and Tell. This is a card that you can slam to prevent your opponent from chaining a bunch of free spells. It also is nice passive hate against Dark Ritual decks. Opponents can't go Dark Ritual into Necropotence. They can't go Necropotence into draw a million cards into March on their end step, because both of those play patterns involve multiple non-creatures on the same turn. So this is a good way to slow down all sorts of opponents so that you can hopefully kill them before they kill you. Thoughtseize is another great one. This is good for both control and combo matchups. So alongside Juggernaut Peddler, you now have access to 6 discard spells, which is pretty sweet. Pithing Needle is a catch-all for control decks and also for other people's sideboard pieces. So it's very good against the Goblin Charbelcher deck. You can also use this to name the One Ring. Any sort of card that your opponents are relying on. Necropotence is another good name for it. If your opponent's deck has any really key pieces like this, you can go ahead and feel free to Pithing Needle it. Sun Cleanser is great for the mirrors, and it's also actually good against Jeskai control. Because like I said before, Wrath of the Skies is the main board wipe in the format right now. I've bought this in against control. And they've been unable to board wipe me or static discharge my stuff, and it's been really funny. Unlicensed Hearse is a great graveyard hate spell if you saw the sideboard card tier list. I think I put this either in S or A tier. Like, this is one of the best graveyard hate spells in the format right now, just because that there are aggro decks that can play it. My camera's in the damn way of it. There are aggro decks that can play it. And what it is it's late game eventuality against all sorts of decks. So if your board gets wiped, but you have a 10-10 Hearse, you could just play another stupid tutu and crew this thing. And then we have one Prismatic Ending is kind of just a catch-all extra piece of removal. If we're against an aggro deck, we can bring out some of our discard and bring in extra removal. This literally can hit anything, including annoying artifacts, enchantments, including Chalice on 1 or 0 or 2. You can overpay X to get rid of Chalice on 1, if you didn't know that. And I believe that is it for the deck. The deck is still more or less similar to what it was before, just a little bit of new sideboard tech and some slight changes to the main deck to optimize it. So let's go ahead and get into some gameplay and learn about energy. All right, game one is going to be against Devil Dog. We're on the play. I'm going to take a little extra care to over-explain all of my actions and my mulligan decisions in this game. So this is a really sweet hand. It's a turn 1 Ragavan on the play. That's something that we're always looking to keep. We also have Ocelot Prides. You know, what's really interesting about this hand is the mana. We got stuck with our basic mountain, which usually is fine because we have a bunch of red cards in hand. However, I'm a little concerned about our ability to sequence because we want to plan out our turns, right? If we go turn 1 basic mountain, turn 2 Ragavan, or excuse me, turn 1 basic mountain, turn 1 Ragavan, on turn 2 we won't be able to play both of our Ocelot Prides, and I might want to do that. So what I'm thinking about doing instead of doing that is actually just playing an Ocelot Pride on turn 1. But I think it's much more likely that we're going to need to use the removal spell to clear the way for Ragavan, or just hold up the removal spell to get rid of any sort of generic good threat. Our opponent also doesn't have a companion, which sometimes means show and tell, sometimes means random crap. It looks like we are against our random crap. It could be Arclight Phoenix or something along those lines. And I would guess it's Phoenix from the Faithless Looting, and they just happen to not hit a Phoenix. So let's go ahead and hit them. Before we make any other decisions with our turn, we should always do the things that involve randomness, and some of the randomness is what we hit off of their library. A Bowmaster. Oh, I'd love to play that, actually. So we can go ahead and use this red mana that we can't cast Cat with to cast the Bowmasters. Of course, we have to cast that now, otherwise it goes away. And then we can go ahead and fetch out a white source. We could think about getting a basic, but then we don't have all of our colors, so I think it's going to be best to get black-white over here. And then play Ocelot Pride. Now we have a really scary board state for turn 2. If our opponent does not have a Fury or something, this is going to be very hard for them to come back from. I don't know if Fury decks really run Faithless Looting, but they've shown me a bunch of red cards, so they could definitely have Fury hiding in there. I don't think we did the wrong thing by playing too much into Fury. I think, assuming my opponent is on some sort of Phoenix deck, I would like to make them have it, because I don't think it's likely that they're going to be playing it. Ooh, Reanimate Atraxa is going to come through, possibly. We do get some triggers over here. My opponent is Dark Ritualing in response to my triggers. They are... Oh my god, what's going on? We're going to Bury It Alive. If they Bury It Alive, they do get quite a few Phoenixes back here. Yes, they do. Okay. I think we're going to be okay, though, because we're going to have Galvanic Discharge to take out one of the Phoenixes, and we're going to gain a little life off of our Pride. I think we're totally fine. The scarier thing for us would be them reanimating this Atraxa with the actual factual Reanimate card. We're just going to let them hit us with the Phoenixes. That's fine. They technically have lethal in 2 turns, but we can get... Oh, okay, that's scary. I think we lose now. There's maybe a tiny chance we can get a Goblin Bombardment kill. Actually, I think there is if they don't leave Phoenixes back to block. Because we're going to make a bunch of extra tokens off of Ocelot Pride. We're going to have 2 of them. I'm going to put a stop on my end step before I forget, because I think I'm going to want to sack my board on their end step. Alright, so my opponent feels very smart and very smug. They had an amazing turn 2. That was turn 2, right, for them? Or was it turn 3? Either way, amazing turn. They leave an extra Phoenix back. A little problematic for me. But what we're definitely going to want to do is play this Goblin Bombardment and try to get lethal. So can we get 8 points of damage through? Maybe. I would like to think that we can. Trying to think if there's a different way to do it. We're going to want to play these 2 cards this turn. Trying to think if there's a different way to sequence that would help me here. We're going to gain life by attacking with Ocelot Pride. That's pretty straightforward. We're probably not making a treasure off of the Ragavan. Going to go ahead and fetch here. Grab a basic. Play Bombardment before combat. We're going to play it before combat because whatever Atraxa locks, we need to use Goblin Bombardment to prevent them from getting life. All right, we'll see what they block with their Phoenix. Okay. So we want to gain the life here off of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot the Arclight Phoenix here. And it might seem like I'm missing out on one damage that goes up top, but I can just sacrifice... Oh, actually, better way to do this. All the damage should go up top. I'm trying to think. If Ocelot Pride lives, then we get to make extra tokens on end step. So let's go ahead and make sure it lives. The extra token it makes will be worth this one Ragavan damage. I'm not sure if there's enough damage. I didn't quite fully count. But yeah, they go to 4. Then we play Ocelot Pride, and now this is enough damage, especially once we make our tokens. And very unlucky for our opponent. They had a really good turn, but not enough to beat Goblin Bombardment. Awesome. Alright, so against their deck, we're definitely going to want these hearses. These hearses are definitely coming in. And then what else do we think should come in? Would Thoughtseize be good against them? It could definitely get rid of something like Dark Ritual out of their hand, or a Reanimate. Definitely could. Sun Cleanser wouldn't do anything. Deafening Silence does technically slow down their ability to get Phoenixes, but then they can of course just have a very slow Atraxa line, which is also super scary. I'm more scared of Atraxa than anything. And one thing that you do need to be wary of with this deck is the concept of over sideboarding. We don't want to bring in too many cards to the point where we dilute our aggro strategy. That's what we're trying to avoid here. So I think all I want to bring in is Hearse. So at this point, I ask myself, okay, what's worst in this matchup? What is our worst card? Worst card could possibly be Ragavan, because they're going to have lots of removal for him, including Orcish Bowmasters that we saw. The worst card, it could be maybe just a regular removal spell if we think their main win condition is just going to be Atraxa, and the removal spell isn't going to kill Atraxa. It'd be Nightmare if we think games should go quick in our favor, and we want them to go quick. I think we're going to take out Ragavan, especially with us going second. We're just going to take out 2 copies of him, so we have room for these 2 hearses. And then we'll go to next game. Alright, so what I don't see is sideboard cards, but what I do see is a pretty good hand, and I think it's a good enough one to keep. It's a hand that can race Phoenixes unless they truly come in on turn 1 on the play. I think this is good. I don't think we're supposed to mulligan to just try to find sideboard cards, especially when we only brought in 2. Oh, our opponent might have it. We weren't beating at turn 1 on the draw no matter what. Okay, but can you get the Phoenixes back? They might bury it alive for Atraxa and reanimate it next turn, which would be troublesome. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so that's definitely going to be a bit troublesome. We do need to try to find exile removal for that Atraxa. There are cards that in our deck that could do that. We just don't have them in our hand. We also could generate a lot, and I mean a lot of energy, and put it all into this discharge. But that's a bit of a pipe dream. We'll have to see exactly what our opponent's up to here. DT. Okay, they were going to DT for Reanimate. So probably the best thing to do here is just go wide, generate some extra energy. Oh, he's so lucky. Oh, he's so lucky. I said I was just going to play a Johnny, generate some energy, and shoot Atraxa with this. But, yeah, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. We're always going to activate Unlicensed Hearse at the last possible movement, so that will be in response to them casting Reanimate. Of course, they can just be smart and not cast Reanimate, like most people would. So instead, we would just, on their end step, use Hearse. And since Reanimate is a sorcery, they couldn't possibly respond to it. Okay, they're just going to do it anyway. Alright, goodbye. So if they have spells for Phoenix right now, they can get this 1 Phoenix back, or they can go Dark Ritual Buried Alive. Okay, we got a little lucky there. I'm not going to lie. If we didn't draw the Hearse, the plan was going to be, we're going to play a Johnny. We would generate 2 energy. Then we play Amped Raptor. Amped Raptor, it could hit a 1-mana removal spell for Atraxa that exiles it, but if not, it would have actually generated enough energy for us to discharge if we hit a 3rd land. Or even if not, we could just take another turn. to eventually discharge Atraxa, because we could have as much as 8 energy at that point. All right, game 2. We're going to be on the draw this time, and we're going to be against JBank 90. This hand's super interesting. We have a Surveil land. One land is Surveil land. Is this better than the average 6? If we mulligan to 6, we can of course find good cards. But this Elegant Parlor is going to help us ensure that we do hit the next land drop, and if we don't, we could just use Discharge, Discharge, and then Prison to answer our opponent's threats, and then eventually put a board state together. So I'm going to keep this hand, but I'm going to understand that this hand is very slow. So we're going to have to change how we play here. We're going to play very reactively to our opponent's stuff. Our opponent is going to be on the beatdown. If they're playing an unfair deck, we might be screwed. Ooh, we might be screwed. We're not going to be fast enough, unless we happen to rip a black source and play Peddler. But let's say this Arid Mesa just gets a land and then they play some fair energy cards. We could just shoot their cards. Turn 1 Ragavan on the play would be troublesome. Ooh, gamble. Might be Phoenix again. That'd be interesting if we got them 2 times in a row. Oh, reanimate. All right. Let's play this tap. We're going to look for second land. We found it. So next turn we can interact with them. We can interact with them this way. We could interact with them this way, or we just play 2 threats. Ooh, it looks like I just get to play 2 threats. I think playing 2 threats is better than peddling. Let me think about that while I fetch. So if I don't pedal, what's the worst thing that could happen? Reanimate Atraxa? That's really bad. You can also bury alive for some Phoenixes. I think let's respect their deck and let's pedal. We already have like a really slow draw. We don't need to hurry up with Ocelot, Pride, and Ragavan. Like, Ragavan's great when we're on the play, but when we're on the draw and we're going as slow as this, our opponent's just going to kill it with an Orcish Bowmasters. Okay. What we got there for 1 mana? We got another troll. Alright, I'm predicting it. 4 lands. Okay. Looting or shards? Looting is an objectively powerful card. And what's really cool about Peddler is that it exiles, so they don't get the flashback as well. So I'm going to take the looting here. Looting can set up stuff into their graveyard. It can dig them a grand total of 4 cards deeper into their deck, if you include the flashback cost as well. They got double Ruckus when they cycled too, which is interesting. Just because they really need the card selection to find something. The opponent will happily pitch away that Juggernaut that we gave them. Alrighty, here. We just go ahead and play our 2 threats. We won't be able to play Goblin Bombardment alongside our threats, but we just looked at our opponent's hand. They didn't have removal last turn, so they're not super likely to have a lot of removal. They'll hopefully not be able to take out both. And then on end of their turn, we can Surveil if we aren't forced to use the Galvanic Discharge on anything. Aha, Buried Alive Phoenix again. Huh. Twice in a row. Oh, that's a different Buried Alive deck, huh? Alright, so this is just straight up Reanimator. This card's very busted if you can just, like, put it in your graveyard turn 1, reanimate it turn 2. You know what else is busted on turn 1? Both of these. Let's go ahead and Surveil. Do we want the 4th land? 4th land is good to help us, like, get Lurrus into our hand. But I think this is worse than a random card off the top. I'll accept the 4th land if it's random. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just happy to play these 2. Let's first go to combat. Like I said, let's get the random part over with. Let's get the information from the Ragavan before we make our decisions. We hit a Grief? That's so toxic. I want to grief them. Is this actually a good play? With this card being unknown, I think it's a good play. Just to make sure that they don't have something funny like a Reanimate hiding in their hand as the last card. Oh yeah, Gamble. That was a 50-50 of them getting what they want next turn. That would have been very spooky. Alright, and our opponent, yeah, they can Thoughtseize me for info. I don't think they can get back into it at this point. But they could definitely take a look at my cards. Okay, sweet. If I play multiple Guide of Souls before combat, do I ever get enough energy to buff? The answer is no, unless I want to shoot my own stuff with Discharge. Do I get lethal if I do that? Like, literally? No. I can get like 2 points short of lethal. Oh, I could have used a bombardment maybe for lethal. Well, we can bombardment lethal them on their end step, of course, which is what we're gonna do. Or on our end step, I should say. Or in their upkeep if we want to be like really BM. Oh, I wanted to still bombard. It's okay. I'll do it in response to whatever they do. I forgot. I took my stop off. That meant it was going to yield through all my triggers and go to their turn. All right. Same stuff, right? We just want two hearses. So knowing that they're more all in on the reanimate, is there something I would want here? Mm-mm. Hmm. I really don't have the best stuff to answer it. Unfortunately, Silence doesn't do much. Maybe Thought Seize is much more worth it in this matchup. Bowmasters can probably be taken out because no, they do draw cards with Faithless Looting. So not to say they're not blue, they don't draw cards. They absolutely draw cards, they're just not in the blue way. We'll take the Ragavans out on the draw against the Bowmasters deck. And then since oh, do we even see Bowmasters this time? I'm making an assumption, right? I think we might be able to get away with taking out some discharges. Can we? But can we really get away with taking out some discharges? I'm thinking just because they're not much of a creature deck. Definitely do want all these thought seizes in to interact with them. I just don't want to dilute my own game plan and like slow my deck down, you know? This discharge is probably not going to be good enough. Oh, I could hit this. I mean, this is hexproof from each color. Wow, this card's effed up. This card's really effed up. I cannot remove this if it hits play. Yeah, so we definitely want all four thought seizes because we cannot remove a lot of their threats when they hit play. And I think it's okay to take out the discharges there. When we're on the play, we might want to even put the Ragavans in. All right. So this is interesting. We got no sideboard cards, no interaction, but we have a shit ton of life gain. I mean a shit ton. We can make so many cats. But like this doesn't beat a Sarah's Emissary. And it might still lose to that Annihilator, Eldrazi. So let's go ahead and send this back. Let's look for at least a little bit of interaction. And there's my little bit. There's my boy Juggernaut Peddler. Let's go ahead and get Pedlin. Hey, yeah. Oh, right on time. Okay, so since we're on the draw, Juggernaut Peddler is technically too slow if they had like Reanimate or Persist on turn 2. But thankfully, Thoughtseize is right on time. Once again, he gets too lucky, in fact. Oh my god, he's got too he's got too much stuff. Troublesome. We can take Reanimate, which means they'll have to Faithless Looting to try to hit their next land drop, at which point we could Juggernaut Peddler. And that Juggernaut Peddler can get rid of the Persist. Oh, we're on a nice edge here, though. Oh yeah, their deck is really all in Reanimator. Okay, they naturally drew the land, so they named creature here. So we do have outs. We do just need to draw something akin to Swords to Plowshares, Static Prison, any of those cards work. All right, so, oh, you know what I just realized? Protection from Juggernaut Peddler. Protection from creatures. Haha. Very interesting.
It's not perfect, but we have peace.
You can Thought Seize me. They probably take my Nightmare here, which is a little problematic. Thing is, this game comes down to whether or not I can draw Swords to Plowshares in the next 2 turns, to be entirely honest with you. Opponent has protection from creatures. I mean, maybe there's a chance I could draw Goblin Bombardment, right? Would that help? Yeah, my opponent's taking no chances with me drawing Goblin Bombardment and flipping a Johnny. Trying to think about any other outs that I have, because of course you played your outs, right? Famous magic expression. Hmm. Yeah, this ain't looking good for the home team. I think we're on draw swords or die. Sword, static prison. We have 5 outs in the deck, I believe. Alright. Again, tough. More protection from creatures. Alright. I think that's going to be it, sadly. So yeah, their deck is tough. And since we're not playing like 4 Leyline of the Void or whatever, we're going to have a little bit of trouble, even after sideboarding. I think this was the correct sideboarding. I'll put the one Ragavan on the play, like I said before. I think we have to run it back like this. I don't think we get too much of a choice. I don't think we could sideboard any better. I would like to sideboard better, but unfortunately, I just don't have the cards in my deck to make it work. I would have had to build the deck a little bit differently, but that's the challenge of deck building in Timeless. You're always making a concession somewhere. We're gonna go ahead and play first. Oh, okay. Tough hand. This is a one-lander that thought seizes them. Oh man, this is a tough one. And like it's such a perfect hand if we had another land too. We got double a Johnny to legend rule them and everything. We got backup Pantate. This is so risky. I think we have to throw it back. Because realistically, I could thought seize them and then they could just still do their thing if we don't have backup to the thought seize. This is a lot better. All right. Oh, we got swords. We got everything. Put the Bowmasters back. All right, so let me think about my sequencing. I think what I want to do is actually turn 1 guide, and then we could do turn 2 pride plus Thoughtseize. That way it saturates our mana a little bit better and also gets us on the beatdown. They can't reanimate anything on their turn 1. They have to wait until turn 2 to do that. So let's go ahead and get all of our colors. Let's play the Guide of Souls. And then next turn, hopefully we can get set up for success. We could also let them, like, reanimate something if we know we can swords it. We'll have to make a decision. Uh-oh. Oh, we're gonna get griefed. Oh, that's tragic. But they might just take, like, my swords and my Thoughtseize and say, alright, no one's interacting anymore. Ooh, okay. Let me have Thoughtseize. I'm gonna play Peddler instead, just to be a bit more mana efficient. Also to get 1 energy for whatever that's worth. Alright, let me peddle you a Juggernaut, dear sir. I'm going to take this Persist. These 2 are lands over here. Juggernaut reveals any non-lands. I'll go ahead and get rid of this Persist. Or would I rather get rid of the creature? No, Persist is just dangerous. That is just a dangerous card. Alright. No attacks. Our opponent drew a Faithless Looting, which has got to be one of the better cards that they could draw in that situation. And if they have land reanimate, well, then it's a bit of a GG for us. We got very lucky with our draws before, so maybe they can get a little lucky sometimes. No? Okay. They did discard a land along with a breaker, so we know one of these cards is a land. We don't know about the other one, though. Right. The Ruckus is coming through. They keep it on top. Okay. So, choices. Thoughtseize them right now. Or play a Johnny. Get enough energy to grow my creatures. I think we should Thoughtseize right now. Just to be safe. I want to be as safe as possible. Okay, nothing. Unfortunately, they kept whatever card's on top. So we might have some trouble coming through. They definitely liked whatever card it was. But since they didn't slam or reanimate... Ooh, they didn't slam or reanimate at all. Okay. Oh, this is a decision point too. Do I want to play Ragavan? I don't think so. I think I'd rather play a Johnny, get my 2 energy. And the next turn we can think about dashing Ragavan. Let's go to combat. Let's make our Juggernaut Peddler nice and flying. What'd they keep on top? It's like they very purposely kept a card on top. Oh, it was a Bowmasters. Okay. I mean, if I were them, I would have kept a more powerful card. I would have dug a little bit deeper trying to find like a reanimate effect or something stronger. I'm not the reanimate player. Maybe they know what they're doing. I do need to find something here. Or perhaps loot into something and play their one land. Dark Ritual is not going to be it. Yep, they're going to be looting here, so they got to find like a Reanimate, but they don't have the life for Reanimate anymore, so it's a tough for them. I don't know if they have outs. Okay, what's cool is we can just go ahead and get rid of the Grief here, and then I think we have Lethal. Sweet. Alright, that was a nail biter, but we got there. Alright, game 3 with Overexplain Energy. We are against Chris. Hopefully it's not another Reanimate for deck, just for the sake of variety. We have a pretty sweet opener where we can just curve like Guide of Souls into either a Johnny or Bowmasters, whichever is better. Has the potential to run out of gas because we're starting a little heavy on the lands, but it's not the end of the world. Also don't have removal, but our deck is nothing but creatures and removal, so hopefully we will get there. If that parlor means we are doing an energy mirror, then I'm super excited because this is a really sweet hand, especially with us drawing Amp Raptor. Guide of Souls, Johnny, Amp Raptor, just high quality cards in the mirror. Oryx Bowmasters is very good to pick off some of our opponent's cards too. Let's see what they're doing. But of course, if it's like my beloved Obosh version, then we're gonna get creamed. We'll have to see. Our opponent had the swords for the immediate Guide of Souls. That's totally fine. So in this situation, we have the choice: do we want to Amp, do we want a Johnny, and do we want a Bowmaster? I never like playing Amped Raptor on turn 2 when my opponent doesn't have any creatures in play, or any valuable permanents in play, because Amped Raptor can hit a removal spell. We want to be able to cast any card that Amped Raptor hits, so if it has like a 10 or 20% chance of missing because it hits Swords to Plowshares, Static Prison, Galvanic Discharge, then I don't want to cast this card right now. Instead, I'm going to advance my board state by playing in a Johnny, which is the most amount of pressure I could apply. It's another hard removal check, because I could at any point shoot my own cat to flip the Ajani, or play the Goblin Bombardment to flip him.
May our axes strike as one!
Alright, looks like it is probably not energy. It's probably like a beans deck. I mean, we got all colors of the rainbow out here so far. So what do we want to play around? Do we want to play around a Bowmasters? Do we want to play... Do we want to play our own Bowmasters to play around draw spells? I think what the best thing to do right now is we're going to plan on double spelling this turn, but this turn we're going to play Bombardment. And we use this Bombardment to protect our Ajani, because one of the things our opponent could have done if they had a Bowmasters was block the Ajani with the flashed in Bowmaster and the token. But now we can at any point just like flip Ajani by killing our own cat. And the question is right here, is it correct for me to try to kill my own cat to flip the Ajani? And I think most of the time I do like to go for it. Guide of Souls is a great card, so we're going to keep it on top. We're not going to play it next turn just for mana efficiency. We're probably playing these two. Maybe there's a chance we play Chthonian Nightmare if Ajani dies here. And that's actually going to be the deciding reason why I choose to try to flip my Ajani here. Because if my opponent does, for example, just like put a Fatal Push at this, I can bring it back with a Nightmare. If it's exile removal, then we're a little bit out of luck, unfortunately. Hopefully we get a flip to Ajani or something close to it. Hopefully there's no exile removal. I'm totally fine with a Fatal Push. Ooh, looks like it happens. Sweet. Yeah, this card's just obscenely powerful. It's going to be tough for my opponent to get rid of it unless they have like a Flage right now, which they could totally have. It's a common card. And if they're playing Elementals, they probably play 4 Flage. Nope, they're just Elementals gamer. They kept swords and nothing else. It's fine. So here, what do we want to do? We have nothing to Nightmare back, so I think what we're going to do is we're just going to play our Guide of Souls for that value. We're going to activate our Ajani for that damage. We're going to get in there, and we're just going to flash in Bowmasters on their turn. And we're going to aim to kill them next turn. There's nothing that we could do to kill them this turn, but there are quite a few ways for us to kill them next turn, so we're going to do the most resilient way of doing that, which is flashing in Bowmasters on their end step. Or in response to a Brainstorm, if my opponent would be like to be just so kind as to let me Brainstorm them. Also, actually, they're at 7. Maybe there's a way for me to kill them with just like playing Bowmasters pre-combat, activating a Johnny, dealing a little extra damage, bombarding with my whole board. It is a little risky because it could get blown out. Okay, there's a Fury, yeah. So Fury can wipe the whole board here. But thankfully, we have this really cool card, Goblin Bombardment, in play. And what you can do with that is you can just turn all your creatures to damage. So we're going to do that really quick. And then we're going to kill them when we untap. Yeah, we might have had a way to kill them on our end step, but I think that this was probably the most resilient way to go about it. Alright, my opponent has divided. However, he will not divide us, as they say. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to their end step before I play the Bowmasters, just in case they have like another Fury that they can evoke out. And they're done so. My turn. Activated Johnny. We don't need to be too clean about this. We have more than enough damage to do it. Awesome. Alright. So, against the Beans. In the other versions of Energy that I like playing, that are just straight Boros, this is where you sideboard in 4 Blood Moon and you start laughing maniacally. Unfortunately, one of the downsides to being Mardu is that you can't do that. And we don't have too many sideboard cards for this matchup either. We could try to bring in Thoughtseizes to Thoughtseize their critical cards before they get their game plan going. However, I don't like the idea of diluting my deck's game plan. I think I'm leaning towards no sideboard cards here. I'm thinking about Thoughtseizes, but I think I might end up registering 0 sideboard cards. Is that correct, gamers? It feels like a crime to have no sideboard cards against Beans Elementals, but we don't have our Blood Moons, which is the usual. We don't have Vexing Bauble. Maybe we could be playing Vexing Bauble in our sideboard. That's another potential one. Yeah, Thoughtseize is the only thing that I could think about, but Thoughtseize, it's a pretty bad top deck. It's only good if it's in our hand turn 1, and if it is, all we're going to do is take a Fury, when realistically what we could have instead of a Thoughtseize is like another Ragavan to put pressure on them. I think we're going to run it back to keep our deck as strong as possible. Kind of sucks to have no sideboard cards with this matchup. Maybe I should rethink that and tweak my sideboard a little bit. Maybe Vexing Bauble could be in, because I think I'd bring in Bauble against the Elementals deck. Alright, this hand's pretty decent. We have double Surveil Land, though. That's kind of icky. I think I'm okay to keep this. It's just super icky with double Surveil Land. Super, super icky, in fact. If I had sideboard cards that I brought in, I would have probably mulliganed to there, but since I don't have sideboard cards, and I know I just have a lot of redundancy in my deck, I think we're going to keep it. We're going to be happy to play this on turn 1, because this is a card that can really just snowball out of control if my opponent doesn't have a blocker, which they're not going to. They need to either Swords it, or go ahead and like pitch out a Solitude to get rid of it. Oh, there's the Wrath of the Skies. That's why we took our amulets out. Everyone's packing that card now. Also blows up Static Prison, too, which is like so tragic. Oh no! Don't. I'm sorry. Alright, that was funny, guys. That was funny. I was just wiggling it around. Just yapping. My bad. It's okay. We're giving ourselves delirium. Right. I mean, this is going to go into our graveyard and we can replay it with Laris. I'm kidding. There's no logical reason to do that. I just misclicked. I was just wiggling the card up here. Alright, it's not going to make a difference, though. Whether or not we win this game is dependent on whether or not we can outvalue them at this point. Ooh, 6. That's a gamer card. Alright, so, do we want to kill the 6? I would have loved to Static Prison that card, just FYI. I think what's best for us is to play Amped Raptor, and then next turn we could do Amped Raptor again and then Swords. It's going to get us a really big board state as fast as possible. I think they're okay to have 6 for 1 turn. Like, the card's not going to single-handedly destroy us. Alright, yep, we got a big board state going on. Alright, what's on top? Land 4. Yep, now we could double spell Peddler plus Raptor or Nightmare plus Raptor. What we might end up doing is just playing Swords anyway. It depends on like what this 6 is doing and like what the dog doing. I could perhaps also play like an Omnath or another like very high priority card I gotta get rid of. Ugh. A Fleech, that's so bad. Oh, I should maybe bring in Unlicensed Curses. I don't know if my opponent realized that I have these two first strikey blockers. They could have a Swords to Plowshares and kill both, but I don't think I minded too much. That's fine. It's not the end of the world. I don't want to say I wrote this game off mentally already, but this is going to be a tough one to win. We're quite behind. They're going to be able to bring back a Fleech very soon, and Fleech is the kind of card that can absolutely murder my deck. We're going to want to save Swords for the Fleech at this point. So now it's just a question of what do I play now? I think Amp Raptor is totally fine. And then maybe we can also peddle them a Juggernaut. And then next turn we can get some Chthonian Nightmare loops going. Oh, that's a cool one. That's actually pretty cool. We can nullify a lot of the life gain off of Fleech here. And then we can go ahead and peddle them. Alright, we're going to want black-white. My dearest opponent, would you like a Juggernaut? Oof. Ew. Ugh. Oh, this is just painful. I'm taking Wrath of the Skies because it takes out my bombardment as well. But man, this is a painful matchup. This is rough and tough. Alright, what are we cooking, opponent? Are we escaping a Fleech? You don't have the mana for it. They are just going to hard cast Fury, that's also fine. Alright, and then we can go ahead and just double hit them with Bombardment. Another Fury in hand too. Oh, they retraced that Fury. Oh, that's why they still have one in hand. Yeah, this 6 is actually getting so much value. I've never seen it get so much. I guess because I didn't let it attack. Okay, we could flip a Johnny here. Maybe there's hope. Play a Johnny. Chthonian Nightmare. Hold on, guys. There's hope.
Nothing is more important.
Hold up, boys. Bring back the pedal. Just real lightning fast pedal me a Juggernaut. No Fury for you. Oh, and there's a chance. Flip to Johnny is crazy powerful. Okay, so now what we could do is we could just like double chump block, ping with Goblin Bombardment. They can of course Fleech or a Johnny. They can retrace to do some nasty stuff. I don't know if we're winning, but maybe there's some hope now that we have an Ajani in play. We could also play Chthonian Nightmare again next turn to try to flip the Ajani again. We double Nightmare to do that. Opponent's gonna Beans first, okay. Yeah, that's a complaint, but this is one of the known tough matchups for the deck, and that's why the Boros version of the deck doesn't run 4 Blood Moon, like very specifically for this disgusting mana base. Alright, yep, there goes the Johnny, goodbye. Alright, so next turn we're going to bring him back with Nightmare and then flip him again with Nightmare. That's going to be the plan. Yeah, this 6 got so much value. I think I should have swords it a million years ago when I had a chance, but at the time, I decided to save the swords for Fleech, which was maybe the correct decision at the time. It's hard to say. Hindsight is 20/20, of course. Here we're just going to take the damage. I want as wide of a board as possible so that my Johnny activated ability is good. I think my opponent can, like, evoke Retrace a Solitude to screw me up at some point. They could only do that during their turn, though, so they would have to do it now at sorcery speed. They're gonna do it, yeah. Look at them, messing up my game plan. Alright. I think I'd rather gain 2 than deal 1 damage to them. Oh, that keeps my peddler out of my graveyard. Maybe I did want to loop it, but they've already been peddled. Okay. So let's go ahead and Nightmare. Bring back a Johnny. Then we're going to sack a Johnny. Well, we're trying to get there, alright. I'm just going to be able to escape Flage soon, too. Bring back a Johnny. Attack this. Oh, I should have attacked first. -2. It's a bit too focused on trying to get the value right. But yeah, I should have attacked first with that token.
Teamwork triumphs.
I also flip a Johnny right now by Goblin Bombardmenting. I think getting the Amped Raptor back is about the same. 2. Get back amped. Get a little bit more energy for if that's ever relevant.
Will not rest until I find my brother's killer.
Alright, and then we're going to go ahead and make another cat. We're really in the same spot as last time, huh? Alright, let's see what you got, opponent. I mean, what they got is going to be an escaped Flage, most definitely. But we at least get to exile it, and then maybe think about rebuilding next turn. Okay, there's your beans. But they could still retrace exile that Solitude. That's so mean. Are they just gonna play it? Oh, Fury? Yeah. Alright. I should have killed this 6 a bajillion years ago when I had a chance. Alright, I think we're gonna scoop it up. It's too much value. Okay. I could have maybe scooped quite a few turns before that, but it's okay. Purses are pretty reasonable. Not just because of the 6, it's mainly Flage that I'm worried about, but 6 is also an auxiliary reason to have that card. The question is just what gets cut. Is it going to be Static Prisons? Is it going to be Ragavans? I think actually like a Static Prison is fine to cut because the game could go very long and the energy upkeep could be a little bit of a problem. We could even bring in Sun Cleanser to preempt the Wrath of the Skies, but I think that's their only energy card that we saw. We didn't see Galvanic Discharge, and we only saw like a copy of it. They probably don't have that many, so I think it's fine. What else do we want to cut? Master's can be quite good. A Johnny can be quite good. I don't want to get rid of the other prison. Peddler was very good. Ragavan could be just okay. Let's run it back like this. Alright, on the play. We have Guided Souls into Amped Raptor or Peddler, my choice. This is awesome. This is one of the better openers that the deck can have. Let's hopefully hit them explosively fast and hard. Alright, my opponent's chilling. They're probably thinking about whether or not it's worth the Fury or Solitude. Yeah! Always cool to see the Guide of Souls respect. It is a snowbally card. It's hard to disagree with them. You know, maybe I could have taken out a Discharge over Ragavan now that I think about it. I was thinking about what to sideboard out. That might be it. Let's go ahead and peddle them, since like I said before, I don't love Amped Raptoring on an empty board. 6 seems like a very snowbally card, but I can answer that with a Discharge in my hand. I think we're going to go ahead and take this Leyline Binding. We could also take the Beans. Beans is worth a lot of cards. It's worth at least 2 with this Leyline Binding in their hand. Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and take that Beans. They have 2 lands here, as we know. what they want to play. They can go ahead and like shock in a white land. They don't have mana for Leyline Binding quite yet, and yep, now they do. So let's go to combat here. I'd like to hit you with a Juggernaut Peddler. Do you accept? Alright, there you go. These Nightmares, of course, I'm not playing them just because we don't have anything in the graveyard. Ooh, they literally do nothing if you don't have anything in the graveyard, other than give you 3 energy. There are very occasional edge cases where you want to play this to fuel your discharges and fuel your Guide of Souls. They might go after my Hearse here, even. Oh yeah, they totally do. Look at them. Alright, I think I'm okay with this, though. Because that means I get to keep the board pressure up. I get to keep all my creatures going. I can go ahead and discharge this 6. Alright, cool. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to play Amp Raptor first. We could hit a removal spell here, or we could end up with excess energy, and if we do, we're going to discharge the 6. Ooh, or another good way to kill the 6 is to ping it, and then discharge it for 3. Very nice. And we'll see if a Juggernaut hits the battlefield next turn. I always love it when the Juggernauts hit the battlefield. And if it does, we can get Nightmare looping, because something is going to die. Ooh, I'm excited. Yeah, Juggernaut, baby! Oh, we could just kill it? That's mean. Yeah, let's just go ahead and kill the Juggernaut. We're just trying to kill them as quick as possible. So hopefully no Wrath of the Skies comes through. Actually, Wrath of the Skies is enough consideration for me to not play this Nightmare. How you feeling, opponent? You got that Wrath of the Skies or no? I got something alright. Oh, they don't even have double white for it. They have an Evoked Fury. They couldn't pay 2. So they can wipe all of my board except Peddler, and that is a lethal Peddler. Whew, okay. That was a close win. I do think that this matchup is like super, super unfavored though. Like Beans is a deck that can outvalue you if you don't have a really aggressive draw like this, where you're killing them on turn 4. This was turn 5 actually. We missed a land drop. But oh wow, okay. I think that's good for the video. That'll leave it at about an hour. That was a good 3 wins to get on camera. Hopefully I did a nice job explaining the thought process, explaining everything about the deck. Hopefully you have fun queuing it up. I've been playing this deck to recover my rank. I've been playing like random decks. You know, things for the videos, and also just like to explore the format, try to see if I can discover something new. And I had a couple stinkers in a row, and I went down to about rank 1,000, even lower actually, on one of my videos, even below 1,000. And we're already back to above 500, just grinding this deck a little bit. So this is still a very powerful deck in my opinion. This is one of the top decks, if not the top deck in the format right now. I highly encourage you to pick it up. Highly encourage you to spend wild cards on just about any of the cards in the deck. All of these cards are generically powerful. Even new cards like Juggernaut Peddler that you might not have seen before, I really think that's a generically powerful card in the format. All right, have fun, guys. If you want to talk about Timeless, join the Discord.